Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at our player props video here for the Monday slate in this round one of the NBA playoffs. We are going to be taking a look at roughly 3 games here that we have to choose from, but still some pretty good choices, I would say, on some props here in game 2. Do make sure you liked and subscribe to that page. We're going to have every single game video up for you, including a player props video each and every day like this one. So definitely want to make sure you liked and subscribed. Continue to follow along with us these playoffs. Head to thelines.com as well. Make sure you head to that odds checker. Make sure you're getting in the props tool we have there. Make sure you're getting the best odds and juice on those bets and NBA player props. Also head to play.thelines.com, where we have the ability for you guys to win a $25 Amazon gift card. Just hit that NBA Daily Pick'em Challenge. Get all those correct, and we will send that gift card out to you. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for some of these play-up props. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, there's nothing up yet for Steph Curry or Jordan Poole, really, because we're not sure who's going to start and who's going to come off the bench. But either way, they're going to be a partner with Draymond Green, who is back to his ways, filling the stat sheet without scoring much. He actually had 12 points, which is above the norm for him in game 1. Also 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 blocks in game 1, and some excellent defense on Jokic. His prop tonight is 16.5 rebounds and assists, with Draymond as the one guy I'm not even really thinking about the points or combining it with anything. Also interested in 2.5 steals and blocks over there, as he's all over the place.
I like that.
But, I don't really understand that FanDuel giving, shorter odds for him to get 10 points in the win versus 10 rebounds in the win. I think it's far more likely he gets 10 rebounds.
Interesting.
Just for an example, Draymond last year had a line of 2 points, 12 rebounds, 19 assists against these Denver Nuggets in April of 2021. This is a Nuggets team that allows the second highest assist to turnover ratio in all of basketball, and the Dubs with their second highest turnover ratio. It's because they do a lot of home run plays, and Draymond being the facilitator when he's healthy, if it's going to result in a wide open shot like it did in game 1 instead of a turnover, I think he'll pile up those assists. He's minus 150 to get 8 assists. So it's really a question. Do you think he's going to get 8 or 9 rebounds tonight? I do think so. I think the minutes will be up more as Denver puts up a little bit better of a fight. In his playoff career, or really let's look since 2015 when the Warriors dynasty started, 10 rebounds per game, 7 assists per game, along with 3.2 steals or blocks. And then the last 2 years of their peak, 18.7 rebounds, assists per game in those years, playing nearly 39 minutes per game. I don't think he's going to get more than 33, but he did do that his last 4 against playoff teams to kind of round into form at the end of the regular season. And in those averaged 8.8 rebounds, 7 assists. So just below that prop, but that includes, 25 minutes in the season finale against the Pelicans where he just kind of took the foot off the pedal there. So in big games, I trust Draymond to come through with the boards, and I know he's going to be getting assists the way he runs that offense.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I might try to consider the assists more so, just because the reason he didn't, I think, top that in the rebounds and assists combined in game 1 was because they realized I'm sure they're still trying to make sure they ease him back to a degree and don't overwork him in the early rounds. But they could do that because they built a commanding lead by the time they got to the third quarter. Not so sure they're going to necessarily be able to just blow the doors off of the Denver for the entirety of the game again. I think that's pretty good for your prop there to make sure that he gets those minutes as well, where he didn't really need to play that many minutes. I believe he had less than 30 minutes in game 1 just because they didn't really need to play him and they got other guys in there. Whatever. Andrew Wiggins had a big rebounding game. But either way, I think the combo of them in the 2 in this one should hit. And I love the blocks and steals, as he had 3 blocks alone in game 1 as well. So moving on to Donnie Mitchell. I can't obviously got to put him in the props if we're going to talk about him in the game videos as often as I have been talking about how much we like him in the playoffs. And we like him in the playoffs because their offense is Donovan Mitchell, specifically in the second half of game one. It was 53% usage rate of Donnie Mitchell, meaning he's shooting more than half of his team's shots. In the first half, it was a completely different story. And there's a direct correlation to why the Mavs were able to take charge in the first half. And really until the very end of the second quarter, they were in command of that game. Donnie Mitchell didn't take over till the second half. In the first, he had 2 points. His usage rate was at about 22%, 1 for 9 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, no boards. And then the second half, if you were watching it all, you saw him go off for 30 points in the second half, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, 6 boards in that time. Look, it's the playoffs, and that's Donnie. And since 2020, we're talking about 34 points a game for him on 46 split. So 46% from 3 as well, with a 38% usage rate in all of those games in the last couple of playoffs. So that's what the offense is for Utah in the playoffs. And he does come through to a degree, especially when he realizes that he doesn't need to just pull threes and pull mid-range shots when he can get into the lane and charge downhill, which is what he did in the second half, getting to the free throw line 11 times.
I know. What happened to our guy, Dorian Finney-Smith, who did such a good job on him the previous 2 games and in the first half? And then, Donnie, just sometimes there's too much talent. There's nothing you could do. I think we do expect Dallas to kind of trade lineups for a little bit more offense in terms of playing Kleba more than Powell. Yeah. That's going to be good news for Donnie getting into the lane and getting all the way to the rim. So I think we expect a little bit more offense in this game, certainly after a 99-93 game. So that's, if Mitchell's going to get 32 and get 30 and a half in that low scoring game, I think he'll get over this prop as well. Good call. Tyrese Maxey, I mean, maybe I don't think we're being too reactionary to say he can come within 20 points of his insane 38-point outcome. He's getting plus 100 odds to go over 18 and a half, or you can just go up 1 more point and get plus 125 odds at FanDuel, or you can take the Sixers, him to get 20 points in a Sixers win and get plus 180. I think that is a very likely scenario. He averaged about 20 points per game on 52% field goal shooting in 4 against Toronto this season, had a 33-point game. Then he only went for 5 with Embiid posting a high usage rate in that second matchup, but 19 and 21 the last 2. With James Harden, his points per game are actually up, his field goal percentage way up, his offensive rating way up, 10 points per 100 possessions to 127, and he's a plus 121 in those 21 games, with Harden also hitting a full 1.2 more triples per game at 50%. We talked about a little in the game video. Harden doing just enough to threaten that Raptors defense and then open up these lanes for Maxey, who is just too quick for their big physical defenders who make it tough on a lot of other wings. The Celtics might not enjoy this matchup as much as a guy like Maxey, who's just a blur. So I guess that just made me feel bitter that the Celtics didn't draft Maxey when they had the chance to. So I'll just pass it off to you.
Let me take it from you from there and agree with you. And you said everything I would have said if I was able to make this pick out loud, which is, James Harden's 14 assists in game 1 really help you realize how much. The other thing is, I know this is silly, but James Harden, I've never heard him speak highly of a young player or really say anything about anybody on his team. He has gone out of his way to talk about Tyrese Maxey a number of times and how he has the work ethic and he trusts this kid. And he obviously trusted him, assisting him on 5 of those buckets of his 5 of his 14 assists were to Tyrese. The kid's nice, man. He's going to continue to blossom. And obviously we know the stage is not too much for him. These props will rectify themselves at least by the second round, if not by game 3, because 18 and a half for a guy who I think is going to continue to put. I mean, look, the only thing that's threatening his point total is if they just decide to go to Embiid every single time and he decides not to kick it out because he wants to get his after only getting 18 points. But I think Joel wants the championship more than anything. And I think he's plenty happy to allow the young legs of Tyrese Maxey to just run rampant all over the floor. There's no good matchup on the other team, like you said. This is definitely a bad matchup, and it might. it's not a bad matchup for the Celtics. They have obviously a lot better defense, but like you said, they could use a guy like him to just blow by others as he's going to continue to do this playoffs. That'll be fine. They had a nice win against Brooklyn. Anyway, let's finish off this night with one of my favorite players. Honestly, I love Will Barton. Will he be on the Denver Nuggets here? He had a nice 24-point outing in game one, and I think we have to continue to take his props. 15.5 points, Nate. That's just way too low. He's a playoff gamer, and when they do not have their two max players, as they have not now for two playoffs in a row, basically, the Nuggets have not had Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. This is the only other offensive threat for the Nuggets, the only other guy who can create his own shot, and the only other guy who plays well, besides Monta Morris, who does play well off of Jokic, but did not show up in game one. And I think you can continue to trust Will Barton. 15.5 points is way too low for his prop, is the point I'm making here. In his last three playoff games, right? He was hurt last year up until I believe it was game two against the Suns, and he only played the last three games of that series. In the first game back, he only had 16 minutes that he played, but in the next couple of games there, and basically since, including last night, his last three playoff games, we're talking about 21 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 34 minutes, with some pretty decent splits, 47% from the field, very good, 32% from three, good enough for him, and then 26% usage rate is what you look at when you don't have anybody else on Denver to get buckets outside of Jokic. 15.5 points is too low. I think he continues to get closer to 18 to 20 for the rest of this series, to be honest.
Yeah, and he had 6 rebounds and 5 dimes in that first game, and 24.5 PRA, also very juicy to me. Because the Nuggets just have a lot. They need a lot more from everybody else in terms of their production all around. Barton, he's right in line with his per 36 numbers this year, but the difference is he's getting 36 minutes, and he's healthier than he has been. He played his most games, 71, since 2017, and started his most games ever. And so 16.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. That's what he gets you this season in 36 minutes. And I'd be shocked if he doesn't play 30 plus the way the Nuggets have their backs against the wall here.
Yeah, and he's not scared of anything. And Michael Malone's going to need somebody out there who's not scared to pull shots, man, because that's going to be something that continues to be sparse for them. Yeah,
the Raptors are +7 here at Philly with Scotty Barnes unlikely to play. Thaddeus Young unlikely to play as well as a potential replacement for Barnes. And the line didn't really move despite that news, but that is key news, to say the least, as they try to bounce back from what was a dreadful defensive showing in game one. Maybe just credit the Sixers for waking up and returning to where they were at the beginning of that Harden trade. Total's only 217.5. That's very intriguing to me in terms of another over there. But looking at the other two games that we will get to on this show here, Jazz are -5 at the Mavericks after coming back in the second half, squeezing out a win there in game one. Luka Doncic is doubtful. That total is down at 205.5 after a choppy, slow game one. And then the Nuggets are +7 as well after they were blown out at Golden State. Only real change in the lineup notes there. Otto Porter is expected to maybe miss the rest of the series with an injury, but Steph Curry continuing to ramp up, I'm sure. And that totals at 224.5. Yeah, Sixers Raps here. The starting point for me is the over. Absolutely. I would like to parlay that with the Sixers money line, or tease the money line down to -3. But I think you can also just bet the over as an independent bet here. It's back to the James Harden we saw in those first 5 games in terms of his bounce, his creativity, his decision making, being decisive. Something happened in that Nets game where he just lost. It was deer in headlights. All of a sudden, he lost his ability to make decisions and either get the ball to somebody or pull his own shot. And now he seemed to have a perfect diet of getting the defense to respect him enough with that step back 3. He still can't blow by everybody, but he had a few good blow bys there. Definitely had more burst. But once he starts hitting that, or at least threatening to hit that, then he can take that step back and move the defense a little bit, open things up for Maxey, who was able to slash so effectively off of that opening. And Tobias Harris had a pretty nice game as well. Sixers putting up 131 without Embiid doing much. 5 for 15 field goal and 19 points, I believe. And look, the Raptors just lost their best option to defend Joel Embiid. Like straight up, Scotty Barnes was their best choice because of his strength and versatility, and now he ain't there. And they're 5-3 without Scotty, with a worst defensive rating, nearly 115. One of those losses, a 5-point loss to Philly, where they had a 122 defensive rating as a team, and Embiid went for 36 points on 11 for 16 field goal shooting. Also got 14 free throws. You look at Game 1 Sixers here; it's back to the good Harden offense. Like I said, shooting 50% from deep, hitting 16 trays, getting 34 free throw attempts. They've really thrived on that extra rest this season. Not a surprise when Embiid's your main guy. I mean, they have a 23 point per game margin of victory and 3-0 against the spread now in those situations. Yeah. This is back on normal rest, but you're still getting some residual extra rest as you stay home for this game too. And I mean, it's a big deal here winning this one before you go to Toronto, where you won't have your best defender and all that comes with that. So I expect the Sixers to come out with urgency as if they didn't win Game 1 the way they did. This is a front running team that, it's and front running, like kind of runaway train team. And I think once their offense gets rolling, they're going to keep rolling. And it's not like they did anything great to stop the Raptors, like letting them get 111, letting Siakam shoot 50% or better for his 5th straight outing against those Sixers now. Fred VanVleet is still due for a better offensive game in his right. Gary Trent also capable of going off. So I think we get plenty of points here again, and 217 is low. So Sixers help us get over that by probably winning, and depends how you want to combine that result with the points.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of things. One, the Scotty Barnes thing, not only can they not defend Joel Embiid even more so than they already can't defend him, they can't get rebounds against the second worst rebounding team in the league, right? They did out-rebound the 76ers by 1 there in this last game. But if you look at the rebound percentage, the Philly won the rebounding margin, number one. The other thing I was thinking was the last time Scotty Barnes was out against this team, Toronto won the rebound margin by 1, which is somewhere that they need. They're a top 10 rebounding team in the league this year. They need those defensive rebounds because they also get, they're second in percentage points off fast break. You can't do that if you don't get a defensive rebound. And they are, as we know, number 1 in points, percentage points off turnover. And if you listen to the broadcast on Saturday in Game 1 for with Philly, and specifically in their broadcast team, that's all they talked about was they knew that the 4 games that they played prior to this year, the reasons that they lost the 2 they did was because they turned the ball over. Joel missed 1, but either way, they also turned the ball over a lot more in those games, giving up those fast break transition points to Toronto, who just has an absolutely putrid half-court offense. There's just a bunch of guys running around, getting in each other's ways. There was more than times than I could count. There was 2 guys coming and setting a screen on the same guy from opposite sides, doing absolutely nothing, just converging on each other, leading to a terrible runner in the lane from someone like Gary Trent or Fred VanVleet that just couldn't get good shots off. And I think that'll continue to be the case. I mean, Philly didn't really play that great of defense. Their defensive rating was 122 as Toronto was, put up the 122 offensive rating. And there was a ton of open shots that they were giving up, to be honest. And Toronto just wasn't hitting those deeper open shots. But once they get into the lane, then Philly's defense just collapses on them. And as we mentioned, if Joel is going to be able to just stand down there with no resistance to get those rebounds, then they're going to be in huge trouble. So yeah, Scotty Barnes going out isn't like it's like the nail in the it is the nail in the coffin, which was already pretty much shut in a lot of people's opinion, including my own. I think Game 1 proved to us that if Philly doesn't beat themselves and they win this game, I mean, their true shooting percentage was outrageous. You look at Tobias Harris, that's a starting point for me. Obviously, Maxey went bananas. He had an 81% true shooting percentage. And Tobias, though, was the difference, because when Tobias Harris came out in the third quarter, after Maxey, sat after he went off for a bit, Tobias Harris came out and just picked up right where Maxey left off. And I don't think Maxey's going to go unconscious the way he did, but if they're going to win with Embiid shooting 48% in terms of his true shooting percentage, 5 of 15 from the field, 18 points, and they're still going to win by double digits like that, what's the recipe for victory here for Toronto? There is none. I mean, they're really just gonna have to rely on Philly to turn the ball over on like 30% of their possessions, or just brick even more so than they did. 50% from 3 for Philly is is unreasonable if you're trying to stop them in any way, shape, or form. I think Philly's kind of showing that they are ready for these playoffs. What you look at with Harden is he's going to the rim, right? And as long as he's just, going downhill or shooting those threes, then you feel pretty good about it. And the eye test there is, how did he look going to the rim, right? And he did look like he had a little bit more spunk in that step than he's had since last playoffs, where we've been talking about him having a hamstring injury since then. So I don't know what the recipe is here for Toronto. I do think 10 points might scare you a little bit, I think, but at the end of the day, this is one where if Toronto's going to come out playing for their playoff lives and just come out completely pulling threes and hitting those threes in the first half, fine. Then I would just wait for a live betting moment to get that spread even down to like 5 or 6 if Toronto's going to take a good lead. But they're going to have to go up by a bunch to even get that spread close for Philly to have them that short. So I think really you're just looking at different ways to combine bets here to make sure you get a Philly win. And I'm not personally too terrified of 7 points, which I think by the time people are watching this video could even be bet up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, what do you got, Nick Nurse? Like you said, they didn't force any turnovers, 3 turnovers in that entire game. He's got to make some adjustments in some ways to deal with what Harden and Maxey were able to do. But you hope Doc Rivers, playoff disaster as he's been, can stay one step ahead and make this an Embiid-focused game plan. I really do like the big man to come out, and I mean, his points prop at 32.5 is pretty insane, but I think there is some value in finding that, as well as the player performance doubles you can get for double and a win again that's minus 150. That's a lot. But Maxey, I don't think this is a complete fluke in terms of 38 points at all. And he's sitting at 18.5 at even money, plus 125 to get 20, and then he gets you plus 200 nearly with 20 in the win. Yeah. I'm kicking myself for not mentioning it on air when right before we talked about game one. I was like, ooh, Maxey 30 points in a win is the most juicy player performance double at plus 2,500 at FanDuel. They've removed that. Now you get a 25 plus in a win at plus 500. It's still worth rolling with him. Look, the kid's a star, and he's exactly the kind of trouble that the Raptors can get into by playing 5 guys who are 6'9". I mean, yes, you have Fred VanVleet out there, but when you get those switches, quicker guys can still burn you if you're trying to play that kind of uniform size across the field. So I think Maxey's going to have a very good series. I think he's a big reason why Philly's going to stay on pace here offensively. Not to mention Embiid is still due. When it slows down the stretch, they can still throw it into the big fellow who's due for a much better game.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, there's a couple guys even on Toronto, especially, Gary Trent, that you could consider guys that need to have a much bigger game. They need that extra bit of 3-point shooting. And I would say, OG, Pascal, Fred VanVleet, those 3 guys did their jobs for the most part, especially on the offensive end there, scoring. And for Fred VanVleet, diming and controlling the offense. Pascal, we call it, is going to continue to get his points and rebounds and assists, to be honest with you, as he's kind of a matchup problem for anybody on the Raptors, especially if Matisse Thybulle is not going to be guarding him and guarding others. He's going to continue to eat Tobias Harris and Danny Green alive, is Pascal. So you can continue to look there, but even if Gary Trent comes in and plays a lot better and scores 15 more points, this is still a losing effort for Toronto. And without Scotty Barnes right now, it's just, even Thad Young, you mentioned on the defensive end, that's really what this comes down to. I think Toronto can continue to score, especially if Gary Trent kind of regresses back to the mean after a really, really bad game there in game one. But I don't think Philly's too concerned with the effort that they're putting on the defensive end when they know that when they come down on the other end, there's just matchup problems all over the floor for Toronto.
A little positive regression from the Mavericks, from the role players. I mean, Brunson and Dinwiddie did what we thought they would do in terms of being able to break down this predictable Jazz defense and get to their spots. But when they were forced to pass out to their teammates, they just didn't hit. I mean, as you put in here, like 26% on wide open shots in game one. This is a team that was red hot going into the playoffs and insane in clutch time. But we all know that has a lot to do with Luka Doncic playing. Right, and he's doubtful. Apparently, they're not going to push him to return at less than 100%, or maybe they're going to hold him off the court because the kind of competitor he is, I'm sure he wants to be out there. But this is a backs against the wall situation, to say the least. I mean, you go down 2-0 at home, then you head to Utah, where the Jazz are just far, far better than they are on the road this year. It's pretty much season over. So I do like the 5.5 points. Just I don't think I'm as bullish on the Mavs money line. We were, kind of shook after that game one performance. It started okay, and then the third quarter was a disaster. But I don't think it's any scheme that the Jazz came up with or some sort of adjustment. I think it was just missing shots. And I think Brunson and Dinwiddie are still able to win their individual matchups. And on the other side of the ball, Donovan Mitchell, he did figure out how to score on Dorian Finney-Smith in the second half. In the first half, he continued to get the clamps and could not get going. But now, averaging nearly 34 points per game, shooting 46% from three in his last 3 playoffs years. So I don't think the Jazz are going to slow down, and I think the Mavs are going to come with them this time. Over 100 points. It's interesting. Their team total is 99.5 points. And you're getting minus 120 to take the over there, but I do feel like they're going to get over this time. I think they'll play with just so much more urgency. And this is still a Jazz team that hasn't strung together any sort of consistent results all season. They came out in game one with, maybe it's a last dance feel because they feel like they're going to get broken up after this season and us against the world. And they came out with a pretty good effort, to say the least. But on the season, still 17-24 against the spread on the road. They're still 20-34 against the spread when they get 1 day of rest. Just a normal rest situation here. Not even good against the spread at home, but the numbers are staggering in terms of how much worse they are defensively on the road. And I think Dallas should be able to exploit that here. I think Utah will kind of, rest on their laurels a little bit, knowing they at least got the split here, and they're going back where they're so much more comfortable. So I like them to cover and do a little bit better on offense. I don't know if I'm still a little shook to take over 205 here after we thought we'd get a lot more offense than we did in game one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, what the hell? No, but in the first half of that game, there was a pace of 86. And Donovan Mitchell was, not only was he non-existent in shooting poorly, let me rephrase that. Not only was he shooting poorly, he was non-existent. His usage rate in the first half was 22%. His usage rate in the second half was 53%. He shot the ball more than half the time that his team, he took more than half his team's shots. That's what that stat means. In the second half, he dropped 30 points. He was not efficient. He was 9 of 20 from the field. 45%, not terrible, but not great. And only 2 of 4 from 3, but he was attacking, right? He got 11 free throw attempts in the second half, 10 of 11. So he made, 10 of those 11 there. I think the things I like in this game more than anything are more player props. I think Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie can continue to get theirs. They'll continue to do so. They did it in a variety of ways. Neither of them were efficient. Dinwiddie got to his prop strictly because he went to the foul line so much. And we were able to see him make, it was like 12 of 16 or something. He went to the foul line a ton. In the second half, he had 11. He was 10 of 11 just in the second half himself, so he could get to that scoring prop. I think that's going to continue to be the case here once again. Maybe things loosen up. Maybe there's a few better shots available for guys like Kleba and Powell, more so than they were able to provide in the last game, as really nobody on Dallas was really able to come along with Dinwiddie and Brunson, who were really just handling the bulk of it, and Bullock got his. He was 3 for 8 from 3, and that's what they need from him. But if Dwight Powell is going to be out there at the center position, he's going to need to be shooting more than 0 threes if he's going to be out there dragging Rudy away from from down low. And he did not do that because Rudy had 17 boards in that last game with 1 field goal attempt for Mr. Gobert. But that's what he's out there to do. And so if that as Dwight Powell or whomever is, really holding on to him on offense and having Gobert guard them, you need to do your job. You need to be a threat out there. And Powell was not, and really nobody was, like we said, besides those 2 guys. But I think we can continue to expect that. Now, I think you should see an uptick in efficiency. That 95 pace that they played with in the second half, I think is much more indicative of what will happen in this game rather than that 86 pace that they played with in the first half. And that's because Utah knows that if they're going to, have the efficiencies and the style of play that they need to win, which was the way they played in the second half, they can't play at that slow, grinded out, disgusting pace that Dallas wants to play it at. Now, at the same time, Dallas has played faster when Luka doesn't play, and Dinwiddie and Brunson are the engines of their offense. But I think they also realize that like they can't hang with the Jazz if not only Donovan is attacking the way that he is, but Bogey was 11 of 20 from the field as well with 26 points. So they haven't really even unleashed Mike Conley, although he was super efficient and did what he needed to do. It's not like they were getting him a ton of shots either. So I think that's going to be the MO for the Jazz in this playoffs, and that's why you continue to hit Donovan Mitchell. Like I said, maybe with a week or two left in the season, talking about how we were excited for player props in the playoffs. The man I was thinking of and mentioned was Donovan Mitchell because of that usage rate, 53% in the second half. That's the way that they play basketball in the playoffs is, here, Donnie, go do your thing. And even if they don't do that, he just takes it upon himself to do so, right?
Yeah, 27.5 points is his prop as we open here. You can add on 5 assists there for worse odds, but he will be making all the plays for Utah. He is their offense, and that's why I thought Dallas could do a good job limiting this team, and they did. I mean, they held them to 99. Yeah. They just need to respond. I think in a do or die situation, I think they will find a way to get the ball out of his hands and limit this team enough so that they cover. I do believe that, but like you said, yeah, I'd be targeting the Brunson and Dinwiddie props. Nothing up yet really for Dinwiddie, but Brunson still to get 5 assists at crazy low odds. So that's a strange one. I would just go up to the 6 assists and get good odds there.
Yeah,
he's going to have the ball in his hands all the time, and he played very well. I mean, yeah, you say inefficient, but he was getting his own shot and carving up that defense. It's just a question of Bullock, of DFS, and Kleba hitting those shots when they're open. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Kleba because if they're not going to play, they don't need to play Dwight Powell for defense unless they're talking about walling off Donnie after he drives, because Rudy Gobert, as we talked about over and over, doesn't even get the ball when he gets a mismatch or when he rolls. True. He never shoots off the dribble. He takes one dribble and shoots, I think, one of the fewest percentages in the entire league. So you can put the league. Yeah. You can put Kleba out there, and then you're able to go 5 out. I mean, I assume Jason Kidd, who's a much, much smarter basketball mind than we are, knows how to make that adjustment and exploit Gobert the way Ty Lue did in the playoffs last season. I think the Mavs will find something that helps them unlock that and get some rhythm. I mean, they shot 29 free throws and still in the second half and still only got to 93, which might make you think, well, then how are they going to get over? But in reality, that just kind of disrupted the rhythm. And then these guys aren't able to shoot well because it's just such a choppy game at a slow pace and they're not touching the ball. It's all in the hands of these 2 point guards for Dallas and Donnie on the other side. And maybe we'll get more of a free flowing game here. And I think that'll be good news for the offense and for the home team.
Yeah, I think it should open up a bit, but either way you look at it, I think like you were saying, first of all, I continued to hit those Dinwiddie, Brunson, and Mr. Donovan Mitchell there, hitting those props. I like Donnie player performance double. 30 points in a win is plus 218 on your money there on FanDuel for him. Plus 230. It's plus 118 for him to just get 25 and a win. So rather than hit his 27.5 points, I feel good about that. I don't trust Dallas. I know I don't trust the Jazz and I want to continue to fade them. But in a playoff scenario, I think what we saw from Dallas without Luka is a lot more indicative than the sort of high that we were riding with them when they played without Luka and Spencer Dinwiddie after the Dinwiddie trade. And Dinwiddie looked so great in those games without Luka and was able to sort of carry the offense in a way that you thought they'd be fine without him. I feel like, this playoff scenario is a little bit different than those, stars out, bets up, nothing to lose kind of thing that we like to do during the regular season. I don't know it applies as much when you need stars to win in the playoffs.
There is no hope. Start the Viking funeral now down the Colorado River. Of all the teams that I think, it's dangerous to overreact to game ones when, in game two, the road team is going to come out with everything they have to try to get a split and not go back home 2-0. But this is the game I feel least confident about the underdog covering. And I feel most confident about the Warriors with their championship acumen, knowing that this is the situation and that they have to step on their neck here and get the win before they go to Denver. Interesting series odds now. It's minus 550 for the Warriors to win, which I told you take that minus 250 before game one for sure. But you can get plus 430 for the sweep. I actually like plus 175 for Warriors in 5. I think that is much more like I think you could split your bets between the two, but I don't think Denver's getting more than one game in the series. And it's because the Joker was held in check. I mean, they have one guy that scares you. And Will Barton had a pretty nice game, but that's great. One guy and one other decent offensive option and nobody else who can get their own shot, really. Joker, after going plus 19 in the minutes when he was on the floor this season against the Warriors, they went minus 19 when he was off the floor. And then he goes minus 19 in this playoff game because, hey, Draymond's out there for the first time. And he is all over Joker, 25 points on 25 shots. And he's in great shape now, is the Joker. I mean, he did an amazing job the last 2 years getting himself into shape where he can play all these games. But so much action on the other end of the floor where they're deliberately forcing him to defend. The Warriors rolling 10 deep now, even without Otto Porter. They can just slot somebody else in there, Damian Lee, Kuminga, whatever. Yeah. And, Andre Iguodala, an underrated, huge, quick addition, the biggest 0.13-minute performance you will see in the playoffs because it was just so reminiscent of when the Warriors were at their peak and they'd have that third quarter avalanche. And Iggy is such a big part of that, just his hands in the passing lane, his ability to get the rebound and push the break. And then most importantly, what Draymond does a lot too is catch off when you try to trap those shooters at the top of the key. Now Poole is the third splash bro. They throw to the middle and then Iggy or Draymond are basketball geniuses who always make the right decisions. So you tell me they shot 46% from 3. Is that sustainable? I say absolutely yes, especially at home where this core unit won 23 of 26 playoff games before they all got injured against the Raptors, or KD and Klay did in the finals there. So, and Denver is just not a very good 3-point shooting team on the other side. I mean, they don't have much besides Joker. If you can hold them in check, nobody's really figured it out yet, but in game one, at least they did. So Warriors -7. It is right along the line. I mean, I think they can still pull away and cover this one. I don't know if it's my preferred bet. I would like to tease it per usual, maybe with other results in other games. I don't know if I'm messing with the total as much because Warriors could be due for a little negative regression on offense, but they absolutely are going to win. And that's how I feel about the series. Is probably a 5-game series, maybe a sweep.
Yeah. And so a couple of things that we told you about game one. I did like the Joker under in points and PRA, which he did both of those. His offensive rating was 107 individually in this game. And that's not going to cut it, man. And it's unfortunate. It doesn't matter. I think what he does at this point in terms of, he 40 point triple double. And I would, yes, if he had a 40 point triple double, I would like them to cover 7 points, but I might still like the Dubs to win that game. I think at this point, what we're talking about here is, what we talked a lot about in the first video, which was true, was that we felt strongly that the Dubs were coming back with the team that started the season with a 98.8 defensive rating at home in the first 20-ish games until Draymond went down in January. That materialized in the form of Jokic unders, 107 points, locking up everybody else as well. Other than Will Barton, there's one other outlet. Maybe it'll be Monta Morris next game. Maybe it'll be Jeff Green. There'll be one other guy that can put up 20 plus, and this still is just not going to be enough. And what we didn't talk enough about, all we really said about the Dubs offense was, hey, don't pick the under in this game because the Dubs offense could just go off if they've got all 3 splash bros and Draymond and Iggy healthy, in that passing happy offense. Then don't feel good about that total if you're going under it because of the Dubs' ability to hit 123 points as they did. I think that's going to continue to be the case. I don't know if they'll hit the 123 mark. I don't know if they'll shoot 46% from three or whatever the rest of the way. I don't think that's as likely, but I do think that them getting 115 to 118 in that range is still like the norm at this point. I think that's what we should be expecting from this offense. We didn't even mention that Andrew Wiggins played really well, because once again, when you slot him in as banana number 4 instead of banana number 2, he's worth a damn. He's not worth the money he's making, but he's a quality 4th starter on an NBA team for sure. And that's what they've turned him into with, even 5th starter, if you really consider how valuable Kevon Looney is down low, playing all 82 games this season. Shout out Kevon. So yeah, I think that'll continue. I think Denver's offense might regress a bit upwards, back to what their mean is, because that was a horrible offensive output for them. But we also mentioned when they play teams that have good or great defenses, which there was a nice span of 15 games that we had where they did on the road, especially, they get locked up. They have 109 offensive rating versus that roughly 119 that they play when they're playing teams like Sac and Portland, et cetera, right? So I think that's what we're talking about here. I don't think it was weird in any way, anything that happened in that game. I think the Dubs played slightly better. They shot slightly better from 3 than they might normally, than they might continue to. But they're still going to put up those level of points. You're still going to see them bring Curry back slowly, since they just proved that they don't need to bring him back. They don't need to rush him back, and they might be able to make a deep run in these playoffs. And I'm now once again very scared of having to play Golden State if I'm another team in the West.
Yeah, and I mean, the Nuggets, you mentioned playing good teams and how they underperform. They're 20-26 against teams with winning records this year. And a lot of those wins, including some of the ones against the Warriors, they benefited from a situation where the other team was not at full strength. And I mean, they're not a good team. And that's why Jokic is the MVP, if you consider that the definition of MVP, because he dragged a bad team into the playoffs, into the actual playoffs, with a 48-34 record. But if you look at it now, I mean, both conferences, how many teams are worse than this team? Maybe the Bulls. Maybe that's maybe it. This is maybe the worst team in the playoffs that there is. And a team that has so many weapons can, again, go at you with hockey subs. And you're going to lose these minutes so badly now when Jokic is out there, or when he gets gassed a little bit, or if they can somehow just take him out of the game the way they did again, that I don't have much confidence in the Nuggets covering in this one. And the Dubs, who have 34 double-digit wins this year, if they win, I think it is kind of a runaway train. That's been the MO. It's been the patented avalanche in the third quarter. So like them to cover. But I would think about ways to tease it, because it is the playoffs and it is a desperate team that can't go down, that tried not to go down 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I might consider, and I'm going to look a little bit more deeply into it specifically, but I feel already pretty good about, on this slate specifically, parlaying the money line for the Dubs with just the spread in Philly, as I think at 7 points, as we talked about in that video, it's just way too small. It's what it was for game 1, essentially. And Scotty Barnes was available for that game, and we know he's not available anymore. He had 15 points and 6 boards in 2 quarters for them. And that's going to be a problem. So if I could just get that money line for the Dubs, I feel really good about them winning. I'm also not scared of 7 points.
How about money line on the over in that game? I'm scared. I think the Raptors come to play. I think they have a much better chance of covering than the Nuggets.
I think at the end of the day, maybe that'll happen in the beginning part of the game, but I still think that Philly takes care. Embiid had 18 points. You know what I mean? But either way, the point is finding a way to maybe get this Dubs money line over anything sounds great. At the same time, I'm also not really scared of 7 points, because to your point, look, Joker's going to do all he can do. But if you're going to be a type of player who's going to put this team on your back and beat the Dubs, Joker needs help around him. He's an assist guy. He's a 0.4 center. He's not going to come out and start pulling 7, 8, 9, 3. It's point attempts and hitting them at a high clip. That's not his game, and that's not the game of this team. And they don't have that guy to light it up. The biggest problem, and final word for me on this one, and why I'm not going to be scared of picking the Dubs the rest of the way. Like you said, maybe Denver is able to steal one game 3 at home. But what happens when you don't have your 2 other max players in Murray and Porter Jr. is, not only does that mean that you have to start Monta Morris and even play Austin Rivers big minutes minutes, start Jeff Green. It also means your bench is now depleted and that Bryn Forbes, Bones Highland, and JaMychal Green need to play. And when they need to play against a Draymond Green playing in the second unit with Andrew Wiggins and Steph Curry coming off the bench, who do you think wins that matchup? They're done. They're cooked, right? So the bench minutes are going to continue to be a problem for them as they don't have a bench. Their bench is their third tier guys. So continue to like the Dubs in this one. Doesn't seem like we really feel great other than that Dallas team in terms of the teams that are down 0-1 right now and how we're feeling on these Monday night games. But plenty to look forward to and plenty of stuff to talk about. So continue to roll with us. We will be back continuing along on these playoffs with you guys for every single game with a video, continuing on with these player props as well. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. And until we see you next, happy betting.